welcome back to Garden Studio. I'm Tessa Pinner, a designer and gardener in upstate South Carolina, Zone 8A. Even though it's the middle of winter here, there is still plenty to be done in the cottage garden. And for today's video, I am just going to take you along with me for some of my January tasks. Things like potting up and cutbacks and pruning away some frost damage from a recent cold spell that we had. I still have some of my foraged holiday decor that needs to make its way to the compost, and of course ordering seeds. So I'd love for you to join me for a little January gardening. There's something about January that always feels like it's full of unglamorous tasks, both indoors and out. But especially out, the garden never looks more dead than in January. And that can make it really hard to be motivated to get out there and still work. But whenever I can find the motivation, I'm always so glad that I did. One way that I've heard January described is as full of big black trash bag energy. And I think that is totally true. The Christmas decor comes down inside and out. We start looking very critically at all of the broken toys in the toy box and all of the things we haven't eaten in the fridge and think, this extra mess has just got to go. It is a time to purge and start fresh with so many things. And often it's a time that I do another wave of cutbacks in the garden. This month, I spent a little time in the path garden, cutting back and clearing out anything that was just looking messy or dead. The feeling of relief when those things are removed is just the best. January can also be a perfect time to look around and think, what thing have I been dreading that is not so urgent that it requires me to do it, but that I'll be just so glad if I do it now and I don't have to do it later. One of those things for me was potting up this desert olive. If you've ever had a plant whose roots have gone out the bottom of a plastic pot, you know what a pain that can be. In order to get the plant out, you have to cut the pot away from the roots. This is one reason out of many that I do not like plastic pots. However, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you have a plastic pot, go ahead and use it. Use it until it dies, like this one. This is another little bonus. Anything to get the kids outside to reduce the cabin fever is a huge win in my book. It can be hard to do that in the winter. I have found that little people are not excluded from really wanting that feeling of accomplishment. So if you can pull the kids in, have them help you, they'll feel great about the tasks accomplished as well. My third task was to finally dispose of the rest of the holiday decor. Unlike the potting up that was actually a bit challenging, this wasn't hard at all. It was just a matter of deciding and doing it. One thing I love about using natural holiday decor is the ability to get rid of it sustainably. So I still had a couple of hanging on pumpkins. I kept waiting for them to rot. And they didn't rot. These were just magical pumpkins. So I loaded them up in the wheelbarrow and took them to the chickens. And we'd actually had some neighbors give us their porch pumpkins a bit earlier in the fall, and the chickens loved them. We threw them over the fence into the chicken yard, and it was great forage material for the chickens. We knew this would be a great way to use the material, so we threw our pumpkins over the fence as well. Another thing we do every year is to save our Christmas tree, put it in our barn, but as soon as it warms up just a little bit, we'll invite friends over and have a Christmas tree bonfire. My last item of business with taking down holiday was to undo the greenery on the front porch arch. This holiday porch decor has been so lovely, but it is high time for it to come down. I'm planning to salvage this ribbon, but everything else will go straight into the compost. If you're interested, I did a video all about the process of putting it up, and it lasted really nicely. I credit that to the plant choices because the front porch of our house is southern exposure, which means it gets really direct sun. So it's very hard on real greenery.
Oh. Well, it worked.
But the magnolia held up exceptionally well. The already faded color of the Carolina cypress just faded a little further, and it all looked great for an entire month. So the one thing I'm salvaging from this setup is the ribbon, which I'm rolling up and saving for next year, and the rest of it just goes right in the wheelbarrow. And rather than composting the very woody material, I'm actually putting that in our kindling pile. The next task on my list was to do a little bit of pruning to our creeping fig. Most winters, there's a little bit of damage on it, and some years it's worse than others. 2 years ago, it was killed almost down to the ground on this wall because of temperatures that we had. And 2 weeks ago, we had some really low temps. All of the more tender growth was burnt by the frost. I decided I just wanted it to look a little tidier. There's one school of thought that says just wait until spring and then you take a broom to all of the brown dead and you literally brush it off the wall. Well, then you have to look at the brown all winter. And I didn't really want to do that in this spot since it was so visible.
That is a bit better. That is the most visible section. May do a little more in other places as well.
And finally, it's time to order seeds. So if you have not done this, this is my invitation to you. It's time. Go ahead and get online, look at your seed catalogs, and start dreaming for the spring. I start a lot of my seeds in February, so I like to have them in hand by beginning of February. So this timing of mid to end of January is really perfect. One of my favorite sources for cottage garden seeds is Select Seeds. If you're interested in a deep dive regarding what types of seeds I like to order for the cottage garden, I do have a video last spring all about that, and I will put a link in the description. Another favorite source for kitchen garden seeds is High Mowing Organic Seeds. If you're curious about exactly what I ordered for this year and what I'm planning to start, stay tuned because I will cover all of that for February.
Thanks so much for watching. I'd love to hear what you all are doing this month in your own gardens. Are there any things that you're prioritizing, trying to knock out before spring? If so, let me know in the comments. Have a great week in your own gardens. Happy gardening.